Parents threw me out of the house right before my cities so my entitled sister could host her friends for her wedding and told me to go live on the streets when I asked her for help, so I sent that message to her fiance and his family, and now everyone is in a frenzy because the groom just called off the wedding. Hook. Can you imagine being told at 17, just weeks before the most important exam of your life, that you had to leave your own home? Not for an emergency, not because you did something wrong, but so your sister's wedding guests could have your room. But it wasn't until my sister, Melissa, looked me in the eye and told me to go live on the streets that I realized. They weren't just mistreating me, they were breaking me. And what happened next? Well, let's just say their perfect wedding plans went up in flames. Transition to a more narrative, slightly softer tone, but still conveying underlying frustration and incredulity. So yeah, I was 17, buried in SAT prep, feeling the pressure when this absolute nightmare began. My sister Melissa was getting married in 2 weeks, and instead of her friends staying in a hotel like literally every other guest, which by the way my parents could easily afford, Melissa decided they had to stay with us. In our house. My room. My parents just sprang it on me the evening before her friends were due to fly in. You need to vacate your room by tomorrow evening, they said. Within 24 hours. Voice shifts, reflecting disbelief and building anger. I was floored. Utterly dumbfounded. I tried to reason with them. 7 friends. Why couldn't they just use the living room or the actual guest room? But no, that would be impolite. Meanwhile, giving me a full room, which was apparently my aunt's spare room in the suburbs, was a huge favor. They actually started lecturing me about hospitality for their guests. Not mine. Guests I didn't even know were coming until the last second. I even suggested some of them could stay with Melissa and Jack, her fiance, since they have their own apartment. My parents shut that down instantly. Too much stress for the wedding, they said. As if my life wasn't stressful enough right then. Slight pause, tone becomes more desperate, emphasizing the absurdity of my situation. I tried everything. Every single logical argument. But my parents weren't having it. Melissa had apparently already promised her friends our house. But the thought of going to my aunt's, that was a whole other level of hell. Was eccentric. Doesn't believe in the internet. No Wi-Fi. How was I supposed to study for my SATs without reliable internet? My data would be gone in a day. I tried to explain that, but they just waved their hands. Take your books with you. As if that was the solution to everything. Voice becomes more agitated, emphasizing the practical problems that felt like huge obstacles. And the commute. Her place is way out in the suburbs, miles from the test center. I couldn't afford to be late for this I couldn't afford to spend hours commuting each way. I was desperate. I even offered to sleep in the living room myself, anything to stay. They just looked at me, called it unseemly, and told me the discussion was over. They wouldn't entertain another argument. Short, punchy sentences for dramatic effect, reflecting the shock and severity of their threat. I told them I wouldn't leave. They couldn't make me. Their response. Cold. Clear. If you don't go, they said, we'll throw all your stuff out on the street. Don't test us. Voice drops, conveying utter defeat and disbelief. That was it. Line. I couldn't argue anymore. A couple of hours later, completely defeated, I had packed my bags. My parents, of course, were beaming. So happy you made the right choice, doing something good for the family. A sheer nerve. Then they told me I needed to call my aunt to make sure she was okay with me staying. Sharp intake of breath, rising anger and indignation. What? They hadn't even asked her. They expected me to do their dirty work. That's when I snapped. I started screaming. And their response. That I was almost an adult now, and it wasn't their responsibility to arrange my life. I was 17. Not an adult. Even if I was, they're my parents. Don't they have some responsibility? That was insane. I grabbed my bags, dumped them and declared, I'm not going anywhere. Voice tense with building frustration, reflecting the painful truth of favoritism. They started yelling then. How could I do this? Melissa had promised her friends. They had to be treated well. Meaning I had to give up my room. I tried to tell them my SATs, my future, are more important than Melissa's friends' comfort. As my parents, they should care about my needs, not constantly prioritize her. But they just didn't care. Sigh, a sense of resignation, leading to the ultimate betrayal. Knowing it was pointless, I called Melissa. We've never gotten along. We barely tolerate each other. But I was desperate. I thought just this once maybe she'd help. Maybe she'd talk some sense into our parents. I begged her to do something. And what did she do? She put me on speaker. And then, for everyone to hear, she told me loud and clear that she had promised her friends. She wasn't going back on it. She didn't care about my Z's. She just wanted me out. And if I couldn't find a place to live, go live on the streets if you want to, she said. A long emotional pause. Voice strained with hurt and disbelief, trailing off as the realization hits. That was the most heartless thing she'd ever done. And my parents, they just stood there, silent, not a single word. In that moment, I realized I wasn't just unimportant to them, I wasn't even family. Not really. That was the last straw. I grabbed my bags, didn't say another word, and I walked out. Voice softened slightly, but the underlying pain is evident as I recount my temporary refuge. I went to my friend's place. It wasn't ideal. I felt like such a burden, even though her family was incredibly kind, constantly telling me I was welcome for as long as I needed. They understood. It had been 4 days since I left home, a blur of anxiety and trying to focus. Yesterday I finally took the SAT. And thankfully it went pretty well despite everything. But afterward, when the pressure was off, I finally let myself feel. All the anger, all the hurt, everything I'd pushed down to focus on studying. It was all so unfair. Why couldn't I have just stayed? Even in the living room. They just didn't want me around. It was humiliating. Voice firms, a new resolve entering the narrative. That's when I decided to reach out to Jack, Melissa's fiance. I wasn't trying to ruin anything, not exactly. I just thought he deserved to know the kind of person he was marrying, the kind of family he was marrying into. I had no idea one message would cause such an earthquake. A hint of satisfaction, mixed with continued disbelief at the absurdity of the situation. Just 1 week until the wedding now. This morning my parents told me everyone was losing their minds. Apparently, Jack called off the wedding. And they knew it was my fault. After I messaged him, he confronted Melissa. She actually told him the truth. She made my parents kick me out just for her friends. Jack, being a reasonable human, was furious. He suggested all the solutions I had. Hotel, living room, their own apartment. Melissa kept making excuses until she finally admitted it. She just didn't want me in the house or even at the wedding because she found me really annoying. That was it. That was the reason for all this trouble. 'Cause she found me annoying. And my parents were okay with it. Voice full of righteous anger, describing the ensuing confrontation. Of course that led to a huge fight. Jack called her heartless, the most selfish person he'd ever met. He demanded she apologize to me, make it right. She refused. Said I didn't deserve it. The fight escalated, and he told her he couldn't be with someone like that. He left. He hadn't contacted her since. Melissa, poor thing, thought he'd come back. She was going crazy when he didn't. Tone shifts to a mocking exasperation at my parents' hypocrisy. And that's when my parents called me. The audacity. They told me I caused all this drama, so I needed to talk to Jack and fix it. Fix it. What was I supposed to say? Oh, hey Jack, sorry, I was lying. Melissa isn't a heartless monster. No way. I told them not only would I not talk to him, even if I could, I wouldn't. He did the right thing. It wasn't my job to fix her relationship. She told me to go live on the streets. Why would I help her? Voice becomes stronger, resolute, revealing my leverage. My family had always treated me badly. But I'd always felt like I had nowhere else to go. I don't like asking for help. Even showing up at my friends' was hard. I'd never told anyone how awful they were. But after seeing Jack's reaction, Someone not even related to me doing the right thing. I knew I had to start speaking up. So I told my parents. Not only would I not fix Melissa's mess, I was going to make sure everyone knew exactly what kind of person she was, and how terrible they were. I was going to post it all online. A moment of triumph, mixed with a hint of disdain for their sudden fear. Suddenly their attitude flipped. Instantly. They started begging me not to. Melissa and Jack hadn't made any official announcement yet, and if I went public, Melissa would definitely blame them. My parents, terrified of Melissa's wrath, promised me anything if I just kept quiet. Pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. Voice softens, but determination remains as the updates unfold, revealing the true resolution. So I didn't make the post. I realized I just didn't want to be dragged into more drama. I blocked my parents and Melissa. And I finally spoke to my paternal grandparents. I told them everything. Not just the recent nightmare, but years of being sidelined, of Melissa being the golden child. I knew they'd understand, and they did. My grandfather immediately said they were flying in, and that I would be taken care of. My grandmother was heartbroken, apologizing to me, saying she felt like she'd failed her son for not raising him to be a better man, one who wouldn't treat his own daughter like this. For years, I genuinely wondered if I was adopted, if that's why they treated me so differently. But no, I'm biological. It just makes their hatred for me, Melissa's petty annoyance, and my parents' constant favoritism, even harder to understand. Sense of relief and growing hope as the new path unfolds. My grandparents arrived last night, straight from the airport to my friend's house, thanking her family profusely. We moved to a hotel. We called my maternal grandparents. They were just as furious. They can't fly out, but we all agreed. I'm not going back home. My parents hadn't even checked on me since I left, only contacting me to yell about Jack. It was clear I wasn't wanted. The plan now. I'll stay with my amazing friend and her family until I graduate high school, then move in with my paternal grandparents for college. My friend's parents, incredible people, refused any money, but my grandparents insisted on covering all expenses. My friend, she's more than a friend. She's a sister. Better than Melissa, that's for sure. Final resolution, a profound feeling of peace, freedom, and empowerment. A genuine smile. Now weeks later it's all done. My grandparents confronted my biological parents. And you know what? My parents signed away their parental rights. Just like that. Relief. That's all I felt. Relief. I don't have to deal with them anymore. My grandparents have primary custody. My college expenses are covered. Melissa and Jack officially broke up. Turns out my message just sped things along, as Jack had other issues with her controlling behavior. But honestly, I don't care about them. All I know is I'm living with my best friend, I'm free, and I've never been happier. Even my other friends have noticed. The stress, the constant anxiety, it's all gone. Looking directly at the camera, a genuine and warm smile. It's truly wild how life can change. What about you? Have you ever had to choose yourself over toxic family? Or seen someone else go through something similar? Let me know in the comments below. I really want to hear your stories.